Alright, hi, how's it going? So I'm trying to do a different intro that's going to be the same intro going forward, the format. I'm going to say some new information about myself. I don't know, I just thought it'd be fun. And then right after that, we'll go into a AI narration of a story, summary of the story, and then you won't hear my voice until the very end. We'll just start it that way. Alright. So quick new thing about me is that I just finally got a new job, which I'm super stoked about. Thank God, I feel like I needed it. And yeah, please like, comment, subscribe, share. I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you so much. See you in a minute or two.
Hell's Drop, the Helldivers. Story summary. Above the war-torn world of Taranas II, the Astra Militarum orchestrates a desperate defense against the relentless Tyranid swarms. Elite Helldiver drop trooper squads, plummeting through the atmosphere in high-risk orbital bombardments, are humanity's last stand. In this crucible of unyielding conflict, soldiers are pushed to the brink, forging unbreakable bonds amidst the chaos. Their dark humor and shared valor are their only shields against the horrors that await below. Hell's Drop, the Helldivers captures the pulse-pounding descent into nightmare, where every moment is a fight for survival against the shadow of oblivion. Part 1 of 2. This story draws inspiration from the intense action, gameplay, and lore of the video game, Helldivers. In the dim glow of the command ship's war room, officers of the Astra Militarum gather around a holographic map pulsating with the chaotic movements of Tyranid swarms across the surface of a besieged planet. The air is thick with tension, only the low hum of the ship's systems breaking the heavy silence. At the head of the table, General Draven, his face etched with the scars of countless battles, steps forward, his voice resonant and grave.
Look at this.
He begins, pointing to the swirling masses on the map.
Every flicker, every shift represents thousands, millions of those creatures. They don't tire, they don't fear, and they will not stop until we or they are ash.
He pauses, allowing his words to sink in, then continues.
Our response must be equally relentless. The plan is as follows. Continuous drop pod deployments. We have squads ready to engage on an hourly rotation.
A young officer, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and resolve, interjects.
The casualty projections for such frequent drops, they're substantial.
Draven turns to her, his gaze steady.
Lieutenant, every soldier aboard this ship knows the weight of the armor they don. We've trained for this, prepared for this. Our people will fight not because they can win, but because they must not lose.
Another officer, older, his uniform adorned with medals, nods slowly, adding,
The General is right. It's about survival now. Our survival. We hold the line, or humanity falls.
As the holograms flicker with the advancing Tyranid horde, the atmosphere in the war room shifts from grim resolve to heated debate. Senior officers, clustered in small groups, argue fervently over the strategy laid out by General Draven.
Continuous drops? Are we to feed them our troops as if they were mere rations?
An exasperated officer exclaims, his voice echoing slightly off the metal walls.
It's our only option.
Retorts another, his face set in hard lines.
Each pod is a bullet and we are the gun. We cannot falter in our duty.
The room falls silent for a moment, the starkness of the analogy cutting through the clamor. A younger officer, her hand resting on the map, speaks up, her voice steady but filled with underlying tension.
And what of the lives those bullets represent? Our duty is to protect humanity, not throw it away.
A grizzled veteran, medals glinting in the low light, turns to face her.
Lieutenant, every soldier knows the risks. We fight to protect our homes, our families. If we must sacrifice to hold back this tide, so be it. The ethics are clear. We fight or we perish.
As the debate continues, each officer weighs the necessity of survival against the cost in human lives. They stand around the hollow map, pointing at potential drop zones, their voices a mix of resignation and determination, each argument underscored by the unspoken acknowledgement of the dire situation facing them. As the war room screens flicker to life, showing live feeds from the planet's surface, the stark reality of the situation below becomes undeniably clear. Each monitor displays a different sector of the battlefield, ranging from the scorched outskirts of once thriving cities to the blasted landscapes of strategic outposts, all swarming with Tyranid forces.
Command, this is Delta Squad, requesting immediate support at Grid Echo 3. We are outnumbered 10 to 1. I repeat, 10 to 1.
The voice of a ground commander crackles through the comlink, the desperation palpable in his tone. On another screen, a young captain's face appears, smeared with dirt and blood. Steady but urgent.
Sector 4 is compromised. We've lost Alpha and Bravo teams. We need reinforcements to hold the line, or this position will fall within the hour.
The images shift again, to aerial views capturing the relentless advance of the Tyranid waves, overwhelming the defenses that Imperial guardsmen have hastily erected. The landscape is pockmarked with the craters of recent artillery strikes, yet the alien tide seems inexhaustible.
Ground support to command. We're running low on ammo and men.
Another strained voice reports, the sound of gunfire and screams barely muted behind him.
What's the ETA on those pods? We can't hold much longer.
Each plea is met with swift, albeit strained, responses from the command officers. They coordinate the deployments, adjust tactics on the fly, and attempt to provide some semblance of hope to those entrenched in the harshest realities of war. The war room, by contrast, is a bubble of eerie calm amidst the storm of voices and data. A nerve center where the fate of thousands is decided with the push of a button or the stroke of a pen. In a dimly lit corner of the war room, away from the strategist's fervent planning and the incessant hum of communications, a group of junior officers huddles around a small auxiliary screen. Their faces are somber, reflecting the gravity of what they are witnessing. A continuous stream of casualty reports scrolling faster than they can read. A young lieutenant, his face drawn and eyes weary, breaks the silence with a heavy sigh.
Are we saving the planet, or just delaying the inevitable?
He murmurs, his voice barely above a whisper, yet heavy with the burden of unspoken guilt. Another officer, a fresh-faced ensign who still retains a hint of idealism, turns to him, her expression fraught with conflict.
We have to believe our actions matter.
She responds earnestly, though her voice shakes slightly, betraying her uncertainty.
Believe? I suppose that's all we have left when the strategy is to throw bodies at the problem until it goes away, or we run out of bodies to throw.
A second lieutenant adds grimly, his cynicism a stark contrast to the ensign's hopeful tone. The group falls into a pensive silence, each grappling with the moral implications of their orders. The screens continue to flicker with images of the chaos below, and the casualty numbers tick upward, unrelenting.
It's not about today.
Another voice joins, this one older, belonging to a seasoned captain who had been quietly listening.
It's about ensuring there's a tomorrow to fight for. Sometimes that requires sacrifices that none of us are comfortable with.
Their discussion is a quiet undercurrent to the strategic maneuvers being plotted just steps away. A poignant reminder of the human cost of war that is too often overshadowed by tactical victories and territorial gains. Back in the war room's center stage, General Draven stands before the holographic map, his figure casting long shadows over the glowing projections of the embattled planet. With a practiced hand, he zooms in on a particular sector, marked by blinking lights and outlined zones, each representing a hot zone of Tyranid activity.
Precision is key, but so is volume. Flood them.
He commands, his voice firm and authoritative as he points to the clusters of blinking lights. The map responds, simulating a barrage of drop pods descending from orbit, each trail ending in a flash on the surface that marks its impact zone. Around him, officers nod, taking in the strategy. The screens display trajectories and potential outcomes, calculating the success rates and collateral impacts. The general's plan is clear: overwhelm the Tyranids with a sheer number of troops, saturating their defenses and creating opportunities for ground advances.
This is how we reclaim our ground.
Raven continues, the map shifting to show the subsequent troop movements post-landing, lines drawn that depict their intended paths through the chaos.
Each pod is a spearhead, an opening salvo in the greater battle. We're not just scattering our forces, we're orchestrating an invasion from above, precise yet pervasive.
The room fills with the low murmur of discussion as the officers begin to coordinate their units according to the general's directives, understanding that each drop, while perilous, is a calculated risk aimed at overwhelming the enemy before they can regroup. As the strategic meeting draws to a close, the atmosphere in the war room remains charged, a blend of resolve and solemnity settling over the gathered officers. General Draven, noting the shift towards dispersal, raises his voice, commanding the attention of everyone present.
Before you return to your posts,
he begins, his tone commanding yet imbued with respect.
Let us take a moment to honor the bravery of those who fight for us.
The officers halt, turning back towards him, their expressions one of attentive respect.
Remember,
Draven continues, his gaze sweeping across the room.
Each soldier knows the risk. They do not falter, neither will we.
His voice resonates with a deep, unwavering conviction, reinforcing the gravity of their shared burden. As he speaks, a hologram flickers to life in the center of the room, displaying images of troops gearing up, their faces set with determination and courage. The general raises his hand in a salute, a solemn gesture of solidarity and honor. The officers around the room follow suit, saluting the hologram, a silent acknowledgement of the sacrifices made by those on the ground. The collective gesture serves not only as a recognition of valor, but also as a reaffirmation of their commitment to the cause, binding them in their shared duty to support those who battle on the front lines. With a final nod from General Draven, the officers slowly disperse, each carrying with them the weight of their responsibilities and the steadfast courage of the troops they command. As the cold light of dawn breaks over the scarred battlefield, a drop pod, its hull ablaze with atmospheric entry, hurtles towards the planet's surface. With a deafening crash, it impacts the ground, throwing up clouds of dust and debris. The squad inside is jolted violently as the pod settles amidst the echoes of its descent. Squad leader Harlan, shaking off the disorientation, barks out with a wry chuckle.
Was that the landing, or were we shot down? Either way, solid entrance, folks.
His attempt to lighten the mood is met with groans and a few chuckles from his squad, who are already checking their gear and preparing to disembark. Moments later, the hatch blows off explosively, sent flying across the battlefield as if swatted by some giant hand. The soldiers, now fully alert, scramble out into the dim morning light. They drop into defensive positions, weapons raised, eyes scanning for the first sign of the enemy. Trooper Jensen, crouched behind a piece of the shattered hatch, peers out towards the horizon and jests.
Hope the locals are friendlier than the welcome mat.
His comment draws a brief, nervous laughter from the squad, breaking the tension as they ready themselves for what comes next. Their camaraderie briefly masks the underlying apprehension of the imminent battle, as they prepare to face the unknown threats lurking in the war-torn landscape before them. As dawn's murky light filters through the battlefield's mist, the first Tyranid scouts, grotesque creatures on spindly limbs, skitter through the debris and craters surrounding the crash site. Their alien chittering cuts through the silence, a dissonant prelude to the chaos about to unfold.
Guests already?
Corporal Leandros quips, his voice tight with forced levity as he shoulders his laser gun and takes aim. The normalcy of his action belies the adrenaline coursing through his veins, a practiced motion in the face of the unknown. As the Tyranids close in, the squad stiffens into readiness around the makeshift perimeter. On Leandro's command, a cacophony of laser gun fire pierces the morning, brilliant flashes of coherent light slicing through the mist. Each pulse finds its mark, cutting down the advancing scouts in a display of disciplined firepower.
Talk about morning reception.
Trooper Jensen shouts over the crackle of gunfire, reloading his weapon as he scans for more targets. His attempt at humor does little to disguise the tension gripping his features, but it fortifies the resolve of his squad mates, each of them entrenched in their roles, united in a grim ballet of survival. As the battlefield becomes increasingly choked with the corpses of Tyranids and humans alike, the relentless assault of the Tyranid horde intensifies. Larger, more grotesque forms of the Xenos species join the fray, their scything talons slicing through the air with lethal precision. The soldiers' initial defensive efforts are quickly overwhelmed, as these monstrous creatures surge forward with a terrifying speed that belies their hulking forms. Trooper Hicks, amidst a frenzy of firing, catches sight of a particularly massive Tyranid warrior barreling towards their position. With maniacal laughter, he shouts to his comrades over the roar of combat.
They're just piling on the hospitality now.
His words are punctuated by the sizzle and crack of his laser gun, sending pulses of energy into the onrushing tide. The fight becomes more desperate as the squad forms a tighter circle, their backs nearly touching. A Tyranid lictor, cunning and silent, suddenly leaps from the shadows. Before Sergeant Harlan can react, the creature's rending claws are upon him, tearing through his armor as easily as paper. His scream is cut short, a gurgled whisper lost in the cacophony. Nearby, Private Joran, a fresh recruit, fires wildly into the advancing horde. A towering Tyranid Carnifex turns its baleful gaze upon him, and with a thunderous charge, it crashes into the young soldier. The impact is horrific, crushing him beneath its bulk. The only sign of Joran is a hand twitching feebly from under the creature's massive foot. Trooper Hicks, now the last standing, finds himself face to face with a Tyranid hive tyrant. Bloodied and breathing heavily, he smirks up at the looming beast, defiance flickering across his features.
Bet you can't eat just one.
He jests bitterly, moments before the tyrant's scythe-like talon descends. The blade slices through the air, cleaving him from shoulder to waist in a gruesome spectacle, his upper body sliding off in a spray of blood before he crumples to the ground, his final act of bravado echoing silently as the Tyranids swarm over the remnants of the squad. The battlefield now silent, but for the chittering of the Tyranids, a gruesome tableau of the cost of war, marked by the scattered remnants and spilled blood of those who fought valiantly, but in vain. As the squad's drop pod careens uncontrollably through the war-torn sky, the chaos below mirrors their descent. The battlefield, a seething mass of Tyranid creatures, awaits their arrival with a grim inevitability. Inside the violently rattling pod, the soldiers brace for impact, their faces a mix of determination and fear.
Hope you all brought your dinner forks!
Shouts Sergeant Renner, trying to cut through the tension with a nervous joke as the pod plummets towards a particularly dense cluster of Tyranids. His attempt at humor does little to lighten the mood, as the reality of their dire situation sets in.
Just aiming for that perfect landing, sir.
Chimes in Private Cole, gripping his seat tighter, his voice shaky from the rapid descent. With a deafening crash, the pod slams into the ground, embedding itself in the alien-infested soil. The impact sends shockwaves through the area, momentarily stunning some of the closest Tyranids.
Everyone in one piece, or do we count limbs later?
Private Alders quips, checking herself for injuries even as she prepares to exit the pod. Before the dust can even settle, the hatch is forcibly ejected, flying off into the chaos of snapping jaws and lashing tails. The soldiers, now fully exposed, leap into action. They emerge in a frenzied rush, weapons at the ready, as they step right into the thick of the Tyranid horde.
Special delivery.
Corporal Leas shouts, half in defiance, half in disbelief, as he unloads his rifle into the nearest swarm of Tyranids. The creatures recoil and hiss, their reactions swift and vicious.
Get your refunds ready. These guests are uninvited.
Private Cole adds, firing beside Leas, his own shots methodical and precise amidst the chaos. The ground around them is slick with the ichor of slain Tyranids, making every step treacherous. Private Alders, the squad's sharpshooter, slips on a patch of the gruesome slick, her fall breaking the line of defense momentarily. In that split second, a Tyranid warrior capitalizes on the opening, its scything talons sweeping through the air. Alders barely manages to roll away, the talons grazing her armor with a screech.
I didn't know we were on the menu today, boys.
Her comment elicits a choked laugh from her squad mates, even as they continue to fire into the relentless wave of enemies.
Let's take these bugs off the guest list!
Sergeant Renner shouts, rallying his troops as they regroup, their gunfire intensifying in response to his call. Their battle becomes a blur of gunfire, screams, and the visceral sounds of combat. Each soldier fights with a desperate ferocity, knowing that their survival hangs by a thread. Amidst the carnage, their dark humor continues to punctuate the horror, a coping mechanism against the overwhelming odds. As they are slowly overwhelmed, their jokes become more macabre, their laughter more strained. Yet they fight on, their spirits unbroken even in the face of certain death, their camaraderie expressed in every dark quip and determined glance. The battle rages just outside the crumpled remains of the drop pod, now a grim landmark amidst a sea of Tyranid chitin and writhing flesh. Trooper Cole, gripping his flamer tightly, steps forward into the chaos. The air is thick with the stench of alien ichor and burning ozone. With a maniacal laugh that cuts through the cacophony of war, he ignites the flamethrower. A roaring torrent of fire spews forth, engulfing the nearest wave of Tyranids. The creatures screech in agony as the flames consume them, creating a brief respite in the relentless assault.
Feels like a funeral pyre, doesn't it?
Cole yells over the roar of his weapon, his voice carrying a dark, morbid tone as he watches the Tyranids burn. The gruesome scene is both horrifying and surreal, the air filled with the crackle of flames and the sickening smell of charred alien flesh. Amidst the dwindling firelight from the flamethrower, the rest of the squad prepares their response to the next wave of attackers. The Tyranids, relentless as ever, regroup and surge forward once more, their numbers seemingly endless. Sergeant Renner, recognizing the immediacy of the threat, signals to his squad.
Grenades now!
He shouts, his voice cutting through the din. The soldiers, trained for this very moment, pull pins and lob their grenades into the thickest clusters of the advancing horde. As the grenades arc through the air, landing amongst the Tyranids, the resulting explosions are monstrous. Alien limbs and ichor are sent flying in all directions, painting the battlefield with the grotesque evidence of their effectiveness.
Let's season this hellish feast.
Jokes Private Leas, ducking as a piece of Tyranid carapace whizzes past his head. His quip, dark and fitting for the grim tableau, underscores the bizarre nature of their struggle, their laughter a sharp contrast to the screams of the dying Tyranids. Each explosion creates more space around them, but the Tyranids are many, and the soldiers know this respite will be short-lived. They ready themselves for the next onslaught, their grim humor a shield against the horrors they face, each dark joke a thread in the fabric of their shared resolve. As the battle intensifies, the small circle of ground the squad holds becomes increasingly overrun. The air is thick with the acrid smell of blood and charred flesh, the ground slippery with ichor. The Tyranids, in their relentless assault, begin to breach the perimeter, their grotesque forms a blur of motion as they engage in brutal close-quarters combat. Sergeant Renner, swinging his chainsword with lethal precision, manages to cleave through the carapace of an approaching Tyranid warrior. But as more of the creatures flood in, his efforts seem like little more than a temporary delay. Just as he fells another beast, a Tyranid's claw rakes across his armor, tearing through the metal and flesh beneath.
Not to their taste, perhaps?
Renner forces out through gritted teeth, the pain evident as he staggers back, firing his pistol blindly into the swarm. His words, heavy with a macabre twist, hang briefly in the air amidst the cacophony of the ongoing conflict. The situation deteriorates rapidly as the squad is completely surrounded, their defensive ring shrinking under the weight of the Tyranid onslaught. Private Cole, now already wounded from earlier skirmishes, finds himself the last standing amidst the carnage. Bloodied but unbowed, he pulls a grenade from his belt, his fingers slick with his own blood. Around him, the Tyranids close in, their hideous faces twisted in anticipation of the kill. Cole's face twists into a grimace that might be a smile.
If we're to be the meal, let's make it indigestible.
With that, Cole activates the grenade, clutching it in his blood-soaked fist as the Tyranids converge on him.
Dinner's on me, boys.
He murmurs, the line delivered with a dark finality. The grenade detonates with a deafening roar, engulfing him and the nearest Tyranids in a fiery blaze. The explosion sends shockwaves through the horde, scattering them momentarily as Cole's last defiant act reverberates through the battlefield, his sacrifice marking a bitter but valiant end. High above the war-torn planet, amidst a storm of anti-air fire and flak, the squad's drop pod experiences a catastrophic malfunction. The navigation systems fry, sparks flying inside the cramped compartment as the pod begins to spin uncontrollably, veering off its intended course. Outside, the sky is ablaze with explosions, each burst of flak lighting up the dark expanse like deadly fireworks. Inside the rattling pod, as soldiers grip their harnesses against the violent jolts, Corporal Merrick manages to find humor in their dire situation. Over the din of alarms and structural groaning, he yells,
"Always fancied a bit of roulette, though I hope to be spinning the wheel, not strapped to it."
His voice, though strained with stress, carries a note of reckless bravado, prompting nervous chuckles from some of his squadmates. The pod's descent turns desperate as it plunges through the planet's atmosphere, streaking like a meteor gone rogue. It crashes with a colossal impact into a soggy, mud-filled riverbank, teeming with the skittering forms of Tyranid bioforms that scatter momentarily at the disturbance. The pod, half submerged in water, sends up a massive spray of mud and debris, the impact jarring the soldiers within like dice in a cup. Staggering out into the muck, the squad is quick to assess their surroundings. Hostile territory with little cover and the enemy already regrouping. Sergeant Talos, covered in mud that does little to camouflage the grim set of his features, comments dryly as he checks his weapon.
Should have packed our swim trunks for this lovely dive.
His remark, made as he helps a disoriented squadmate to her feet, elicits a round of grim laughter, the absurdity of their predicament momentarily lightening the weight of the imminent battle. The terrain near the river's edge is a quagmire of mud and unsettled earth, making any movement a precarious endeavor. The squad, having just extricated themselves from the wreckage of their drop pod, now faces the challenge of regaining their footing in the slippery muck. They attempt to form up, aligning themselves into a defensive perimeter, but the mud betrays their efforts, sending them sliding and stumbling awkwardly. Private Kellen, his boots caked in thick, sucking mud, loses his balance and falls squarely on his back, splashing mud up around him. Sergeant Talos, nearby, extends a hand to pull him up, his own footing barely secure.
Careful there, this mud's more treacherous than a nest of vipers,
he remarks, scanning the perimeter as he helps Kellen to his feet. His voice is tense, reflecting the seriousness of their predicament rather than making light of it. as the soldiers slowly stabilize their positions, forming a rough circle facing outwards towards the unseen threats hidden by the dense mist rolling off the river. Their focus is abruptly shattered as the murky river water beside them erupts in violence. Submerged Tyranids, having lain in wait beneath the deceptive calm of the surface, burst forth with ferocious speed. Their limbs, barbed and dripping, slice through the air as they launch themselves at the squad. Corporal Nix reacts instantly, swinging her rifle towards the emerging threat. Her first shots are precise, cutting down the lead creature, but more follow in quick succession.
Looks like we've stirred up a hornet's nest.
She grunts, her voice tight with focus as she steps back, firing round after round into the oncoming wave of Tyranids. The squad rallies to her position. Their weapons, a continuous blaze of light as they pour fire into the attackers. Despite their efforts, the Tyranids' numbers seem endless, and the soldiers are forced to retreat step by slippery step, struggling to maintain their cohesion against the relentless assault.
Sarge, might be time to call for that rain check on the retreat.
Kellen yells over the roar of gunfire, even as he assists in dragging a wounded squad mate back from the front line.
No retreat, soldier. We hold the line here.
Sergeant Talos fires back, his voice laced with resolve as he reloads his weapon, his eyes never leaving the foe. Amidst the chaos, the squad's conversation remains stark and direct, reflecting the desperate situation they find themselves in. Their dialogue, though devoid of humor, shows their resolve and the grim reality of their circumstances, emphasizing the severity of their fight for survival. The riverbank had become a quagmire, the mud and ichor blending into a slick, treacherous mess that clung to everything it touched. The squad, their uniforms stained with the blood of both friend and foe, fought back with a desperation born of imminent doom. Laser guns blazed continuously, cutting down Tyranid after Tyranid. But still, they came. An unending tide of chitin and flesh.
Seems we've overstayed our welcome in this garden of nightmares.
Corporal Merrick yelled over the din of battle, his voice strained as he swung his rifle butt into the face of a Tyranid that had gotten too close. His dark commentary, devoid of earlier humor, reflected the gravity of their situation, no longer eliciting laughter but nods of grim acknowledgement from his comrades. Despite their efforts, the Tyranids were relentless. As one fell, two more took its place, their screeches drowning out the sounds of gunfire and the soldiers' shouts. The squad was being pushed back, inch by grueling inch, towards the swollen river that had already claimed the bodies of their fallen brethren. The situation deteriorated quickly as the squad found themselves backed up to the water's edge. There was no more ground to give. One by one, they were overwhelmed, dragged screaming into the mud and murky water by the Tyranids' many-limbed warriors. The grotesque sounds of tearing flesh and breaking bones mixed with the river's lap against the shore, a macabre symphony of the end. Corporal Nix, the last standing, fought like a woman possessed. But even her spirited defense was not enough, as a particularly large Tyranid enveloped her with its limbs, dragging her down. She managed a strained, gurgling laugh.
So this is it. May my sacrifice not be in vain,
were her last words. Her voice choked with both water and blood as she disappeared beneath the surface, leaving a frothy red wake behind. The riverbank fell silent, but for the sounds of the Tyranids' continued advance. The squad's last stand, marked by flashes of gallows humor and grim determination, was but a brief delay in the inexorable tide of the war. The river carried away the remnants of their resistance, mingling the mud and ichor with the tears of a lost cause. As the last drop pod streaks towards the war-torn planet, the command ship remains suspended in the void, a silent overseer to the chaos unfolding below. The war room, aglow with the light of multiple holographic displays, is bustling yet again. Commanders and officers surround the strategy table, their faces a complex tapestry of resolve and weariness. General Draven, standing apart from the others, gazes out through the observation deck at the distant planet. The surface is alight with the fires of ongoing battles, each flash marking the fall of more pods, more troops, more sacrifices in the name of victory. His reflection in the glass is ghostly, a spectre of command burdened by the weight of decisions.
Prepare for the next wave,
he orders, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions brewing within. The room falls silent for a moment, the gravity of the situation settling on each person present. They know what this means. More pods, more soldiers, more hopefuls turned heroes, not all of whom will return. The strategic displays update in real time, showing the deployment of fresh squads, each marked by their insignia flashing momentarily before being replaced by the next. The cycle is relentless.
We are making progress.
The lead strategist asserts, trying to inject a note of optimism into the room.
Each push gets us closer. We must maintain pressure.
General Draven nods slowly, turning back to the table.
Ensure that every pod is precisely targeted. We can't afford missteps, not at this stage.
As the commanders rally around their maps and screens, planning and strategizing, the final image focuses on a newly loaded drop pod, its door sealing with a hiss. Inside, a new squad braces for descent, their faces set with determination, unaware of the full scope of what awaits them but ready to face it head-on. The ship, a silent behemoth against the backdrop of the cosmos, ready to send yet another wave into the fray. The cycle of war continues, unyielding, with each new plan a thread in the vast tapestry of conflict that weaves through the story of humanity's fight for survival in the grim darkness of the far future.
And thank you if you made it here. This is just part 1 of a 2-part series. Just kind of made it to have fun. Commentary will be after this. If you liked it, please like, comment, subscribe. And if you didn't, let me know why. I love criticism and feedback. It's always useful. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I'll see you soon. Stay tuned. Thank you. Bye. And now we're into commentary for people that enjoy that. One second. So I don't actually have like a lot to say here. I'm gonna try and keep the commentaries pretty quick from this point forward. Let me know what you think of the new kind of intro format, where I'm just it's gonna be really quick. I'm just gonna say, you know, a quick fact about me or something new about me, and then we'll go into the AI narration of the summary, so people can get a feel for if they actually want to listen to this first. And then after that, you know, it tells you the part, and then, or if it has 2 parts or multiple parts, and then it just tells you what it's kind of inspired by. And then it starts. So hopefully it's like a 30-second or less kind of intro, so it can just start right away. And then I'll still do these commentaries, but I'll make these commentaries a little bit shorter. And then again, whenever a full video comes out, or a full series, I won't have commentary in that one, so you can just watch it from start to finish without hearing me talk or anything like that. There's not a ton I want to say about this one. I really just... It started out less serious and more of like a fun, like little goofy thing. That's why they all have like these little quips and stuff, is because that's how I initially wrote it. And then as I kept going back and changing things, I kept changing things to make it more serious and more grim and stuff. Less goofy, but they still have some goofy parts in it. the idea behind it was I got really into the Helldivers lore about how, you know, just basically all of it. But it really stuck to me how, as a player, you know, you experience it. So if you played the game, you go through this training tutorial for the elite Helldiver experience, right? Or elite Helldiver, to become an elite Helldiver soldier. And the tutorial is ridiculously easy, like a joke. And then at the end of it, you walk into basically your refrigerator and they flash freeze you. And then you realize that you're just one of many Helldivers frozen in these pods. And then you're shot up into space, into your spaceship. You're frozen the entire time. Then the ship goes to the war zone, whether it be the automatons or the Tyranids. And then you're immediately unfrozen when they need you. And right off the bat, you just go and check your equipment, and then you shoot down to the planet, and then you die in like a minute or less. I think Helldivers have in the lore, they have a life expectancy of 2 or 3 minutes. And then that guy dies, you know, your player dies, your player character dies. And then they just shoot down, you know, in a gameplay mechanic, it's respawning. But in the lore, they just unfreeze another elite, quote-unquote, elite Helldiver. Even though the experience can vary because they're players playing it. And then that one, you know, just immediately goes, checks their equipment, gets shot down to the planet, dies within 3 minutes. And then they just do another one. Another whole person that they just unfreeze, shoot down, and there's, you know, and then they die. And then there's this whole lore about why they're doing that and stuff like that, so etc. But that's really the main part that I used as inspiration. I just kind of wanted to write a story where, and the Tyranids felt like the perfect enemy, obviously, because, you know, they're just getting swarmed, they're swarming all the time. But that's where I came up with, you know, just Imperial guards shooting them from orbit, shooting down whole squads, you know, 4-man teams of squads, just like Helldivers. And then basically all of them, the initial idea was for all of them to die within, you know, basically right when they land. Translating that into like writing, you know, like instead of just an outline or an idea, turned out to be a little bit more difficult than I thought, because I wanted it to be shorter, quicker, briefer, you know, more of like a, you know, they get out and they're ready, and you hear their camaraderie for a second, and then, you know, the squad leader's talking, and gets cut off because, boom, a Tyranid just smacks on him or something. And then the rest of the squad, you know, frantically freaks out, and they're like, oh shit, and then they all die too. Like one after the other, very quickly. And I wanted them all to be kind of new, fresh recruits kind of vibe, so that's why they're all, and again, I started off with the goofy vibe, so that's why they have all these little quips and stuff, and like little things that they say, because it's supposed to be kind of goofy, it's supposed to be kind of like that. But I like the idea of them, you know, the Imperial Guard shooting these squads down in massive bombardments, you know, hoping that the bombardment will do something to the Tyranids, and then it's just a bonus that the bomb that they're shooting at the Tyranids has a, you know, an elite soldier in it that'll jump out and try and do their objective or just cause harm or something. But the focus is more of like the bombardment itself, like dropping the pod. Like the pod is the more important thing to the Imperium. The effect of the pod having when it lands. Because the effect of the troopers when they get out of the pods is atrocious. You know, they die immediately. And yeah, so I kind of toyed with that. That's kind of all I wanted to say. This is part 1 of a 2-part. I was initially gonna do it all together, and it would have been about an hour long. But I'm gonna try and break up videos so that they're about 30 minutes long each. you know, without the commentary. But the initial one was, you know, a part 1 where you're on the ship with all the officers, and then there's parts 2 through 8 are all just short stories of the squads being dropped and how they die. And then part 9, you bring it back to the officers again, and you know, you have some ending and resolution and stuff. But I decided to break that into 2 parts because then it's 30 minutes each. So this one you had the officers, and then you had 4 or 3 parts of the story, which I also thought was more digestible for people instead of just you know, 8 or 7 parts one after the other of just Imperial Guard troopers dying. There will be that video because I'm gonna make a part 1 part 2 combined video, so you will be able to listen to Imperial Guard troopers dying in mass in 7 separate stories, one after the other. But in this one, I just thought it was more digestible to do 3, and then I added, you know, at the end, once I finished all the parts, I added part 4.25 and 4.75. 4.25 is just like a really brief ending to this one that you just heard, and then the 4.75 is gonna be a really brief intro to the other part. That's about it. I've been talking for too long. I said I'd try to keep these short, but it's difficult. Yeah, so I'll just leave you here. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for supporting. If you want to support me more, I have a, what is it called? I have a buy me a coffee link in the description. These the AI voices and stuff cost money to make. It's about $25 per month, and then I have to pay extra for if I go over, and I tend to go over by quite a lot. So generally each story kind of comes out to, well, I can make like a whole story with 3 parts or 2 parts sometimes, but usually 3, costs me like $35, I think, which, saying it out loud, is kind of a lot. I have like tricks to do where I can kind of get around the money with certain stories, but they don't always work. Like the website that I use kind of sometimes flags the emails once I'm already using them, and it's just a way, like a free trial type of thing. I just use the free trial over and over again, but it flags me sometimes, so every once in a while I do have to pay for it. Plus I also, to get the more unique voices and to make my own voices, I do have to pay for it. So I've never talked about this before. That's the only reason why I'm talking about it now. But yeah, so if you want to support that and help me pay for some of these narrations and stuff, the link's in the description. Other than that, please like, comment, subscribe, share, and yeah, I'll be releasing part 2 pretty soon. I have that lone tech priest story. I have part 1 done, and I'm working on part 2, and I'm doing the production for part 1, the video editing. I have another story that I'm, you know, trying to figure out. It's gonna be a lot more, it's not just gonna be, it's like a strategic overview of a battle that happens, and I'm gonna do it like, if you've ever seen Generals and Kings, or Kings and Generals, the YouTube channel, or if you've ever seen Janovic, Janoich, there's a V in there at some point. They do kind of like a strategic map, like it's the map of with a large theater of war, and then they do the unit icons, or the unit composition, so it'll be like battalions or something, and they'll have a leader, and then they'll animate them like, you know, the two armies are coming together, the two brigades are coming together, and they're depicted like that. I don't know if you catch what I'm saying, but I'm trying to figure out that. It requires like a lot of assets, a lot of, I mean, it actually requires video editing instead of just slapping things together like I'm doing. It actually requires like animation and all this other stuff. So it'll take a while, but I'm excited for it. I'm excited doing it, and I'm excited to bring it to you because it is a little different. And yeah, it's not just a bunch of AI images all put together. This one will be, you'll still be able to listen to it like an audiobook, which is the point of all of these. That's why they have AI images, because the point is the audio. But this one will be, the focus will be the audio and the visuals. And I'll be actually animating things and moving stuff. So I've mapped out like a whole, I think I have 100+ pages of details about the planet, about the factions involved and their unit composition, and what they're doing, and you know, etc, etc, etc. I made all this stuff that's still in the Warhammer lore, but it's all like kind of made up, and it's based around the Siege of Vrax, the idea and the whole everything that happened in the Siege of Vrax. It's loosely based on that, but I'm really excited. That's why I'm talking about it so much. I've been talking for 13 minutes now. It made this video like almost an hour long, even though the video itself is only like 30 minutes, or the audiobook is only 30 minutes. I'm gonna keep these shorter in the future. Every once in a while they'll be long for like extra information if anyone wants to hear about it or something. But yeah, I'll try and keep these shorter. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the second part. I hope you enjoyed this part. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe, share. Thanks for listening to my rambles. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you have a good day, good night. Alright, that's it. Talk to you soon. Stay tuned. Alright, bye.